All right, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started with today's reading mini lesson, I just want to say a big thank you to all of my students and all of your families for being flexible yesterday with the video problems. This is new territory for me, teaching like this remotely and trying to connect with you all, and I really appreciate your flexibility, your communication, and your patience. Hopefully today's videos will be a little bit smoother. All right, today what we're going to do, yesterday we talked about minor characters and how they impact the main characters. Today we're going to look more closely at the negative impact. So we're looking at conflicts that are going to be happening with our characters in our book club books. So we'll be doing a little bit of that in our mini lesson, and you're going to apply it to your book club book. And then you're going to read another article for our PLTW about speed and velocity. Now, I also had some questions yesterday. What if I'm done with my book club book? Well, if you're done with your book club book, you're still going to use it with our mini lessons because we're still studying that historical fiction piece. But if you're done with your book club book and you're not reading your book club book, then you should find another book to read during this time. It's very important that you continue to practice that reading and that comprehension piece, even though we're not at school every day. All right, so today we're going to pay close attention to the character and historical issues that occur by naming conflicts. So we're going to review all the different types of conflicts today that our characters might encounter. Big thing to remember with conflict, and this is review from the beginning of the year with our realistic fiction books, characters can have internal struggles that are often with themselves, and they can have external struggles, and those are those struggles we're going to see with other characters, maybe with nature or with society. So remember, internal, within themselves, external, it's that outside force. The 4 types of conflict we're going to focus on is when a character has a problem with themselves. So they're struggling with some internal decision or choice they might have to make. Then we're going to talk about characters who have struggles or conflicts with other characters within the book. With historical fiction, character versus nature isn't always a big one, but that is when a character's having a struggle with like a tornado or some sort of natural force that they can't control. And then lastly, character versus society, which this is huge with our historical fiction book clubs because they take place during historical time frames when society often had very different views from what we are used to today. So, character versus self, when the character faces a struggle within. So maybe they're not confident in doing something, or maybe they have to make a really difficult choice. We're going to see a lot of those difficult choices in historical fiction book clubs. I know the I Survived the Battle of Gettysburg book opens with a very difficult choice with Bertie and Thomas fleeing from the plantation and is trying to escape slavery. I know Mississippi Bridge, you've got some difficult choices that Jeremy's going to have to make. All of your books have characters who are going to have that internal struggle with self on views and choices and who they choose to surround themselves with. Or maybe they encounter a personal problem. That character versus character piece is where we're going to see another character has a disagreement or issue or problem with another character in the story. So character versus character. Character versus nature, again, these are those forces of nature, elements of nature that are outside of the control of the character. So natural disasters are a lot. Survival stories, you're going to see that kind of thing. And last but not least, character versus society. So those are those unjust, unfair elements going on with society or government. We're going to see a lot of those in our books with discrimination and racism and some of those inequalities that are taking place. Segregation. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to model how I'm going to think through this process with Freedom Summer. And then what you're going to do, you have a chart similar to this table. You're going to think about your characters in your book, and you're going to complete this chart using your historical fiction book club book. So, Freedom Summer. One of the big things about Freedom Summer is the swimming pool and how the South is very segregated. So that's going to go with that character versus society struggle. So we have the South is segregated. And this limits where John Henry is allowed to go with Joe. Okay, so the South is segregated. And we can even get more specific, like John Henry isn't permitted to swim at the public pool. John Henry can't go in the store with Joe to purchase an ice pop. And this is all at the beginning of the book, right? Because conflicts and struggles happen throughout the story. Character versus nature, I don't really see any natural disasters or like tornadoes or anything like that in my book with Freedom Summer, so you might not have any of those. Character versus character. We need to think back to the owner of the shop and how he treats John Henry. So the owner of the store does not allow John Henry inside. Now, we talked about the store with society too. That's segregation was what society had in place in the government, but the store owner still has a choice whether or not to let John Henry in the store. So that was why we have that character versus character. John Henry and Joe are upset at John Henry's brother when he tells them to leave the pool. Now, I also want to touch base on this, because John Henry's brother, do you think he truly wants to be filling in that pool that is now supposed to be open to all people, no matter what the color of their skin is? So that's when we're talking about character struggling with self. John Henry's brother struggles with the fact that he has to fill in the pool with cement. He doesn't really want to do that, but it's his job. I'm sure as an older brother, he knows how excited John Henry was to go swimming in this pool for the first time, and it probably breaks his heart a little bit to be one of those people that has to fill in the cement and the concrete. So those are those characters versus self struggles. Just like throughout the book, Joe struggles with how John Henry can't do all of the same things as him because of the color of his skin. So that's that struggle internally that Joe is having throughout the story. So as you can see, characters have multiple types of conflict they can encounter. They can have struggles within themselves, they can struggle with other characters, and they can struggle with nature or society. So what I want you today to do is to think through what you've read in your historical fiction book club book so far. And if you finish the book, think about the whole book, just like I did with Freedom Summer, and list some of those conflicts that the characters are having. You can use bullet points like I did. Whatever works for you. I recommend typing because the boxes are a little small and for neatness purposes, so I can be sure to read all of your thoughts. But that's what you're going to be doing today, thinking about characters and the conflicts they encounter. So here's your reminder of what you have going on for reading block today. Again, I'll be available if you have questions. Feel free to email me, seesaw message me. You can message through Canvas, however you feel comfortable. And I look forward to reading what you come up with about conflict.